Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, you are going to take a look at what exactly is meant by economic growth. So economic growth, what exactly is meant when you're in the news and you see this stuff like, oh, economic growth of 2%, 3%, 4%, negative growth? What does all that mean? Well, basically, if you think about what the words mean, growth economically of a country, and what economic growth means is that there is more economic activity this year than last. Do you get that? Economic growth means there are more economic transactions happening in whatever country you are this year versus last. And usually governments want to keep that growth in a fully developed economy. They want to keep that growth at 2%. And the reason they do is that will enable them to more readily predict the rate of inflation, because high levels of inflation, or rather economic growth, causes inflation, because if there's 2% growth, then that's 2% more things being purchased this year than last year, which means that there are fewer things, which means they're going to be pushed up by the law of demand, which means that inflation is going to be in and around 2% as well. So economic growth and the inflation rate of a country are very much related to one another. All right, so let's get some real definitions here. Okay, economic growth, an increase of real value of all economic activity in a country over a set period of time, say a year. There you go, there's your definition, okay? The goal, 2%, and that is for developed nations. If it's a developing nation, it may be around 3%, 4%. China has just been incredible and able to sustain, or they did for a period, sustain 10% growth for nearly 30 years, okay? But that is because growth in China is a result of the fact that there's so many people, and so there's this relationship with growth and the amount of economic activity that goes on in a country. And if you imagine that there are many people moving from, say, a lower economic status into the middle class, which has been the case in China over the years, you can see how they could sustain high levels of growth because more people are moving in, and it can be sustained over more longer period of time because there's just more people, okay? So, key point, if growth is happening, it will also mean that the price of all goods and services will rise, which means that there will be inflationary pressure. There you go. So 2% growth would mean roughly a 2% rate of inflation, okay? And so, therefore, governments work very hard to keep growth right at 2%, so as to keep inflation right at 2%. And if you know anything about the macroeconomic goals of a country, if you don't, check out the video called What is Macroeconomics, which is where I talk about it, or check out any of the other videos that are posted on this channel, which, by the way, there are over 300 videos posted that cover the entire curriculums of microeconomics, macroeconomics, international economics, development economics, and theory of the firm, which means that there are videos to help you no matter your course of study that you're taking out there in the world, whether it be IB, AP, A-level, or any university level course. Okay, so check out that if you want more information on growth or what causes it or how you calculate it. Videos are there for you. Okay, so here's the thing though. Economic growth does not imply an increase in income for all citizens because, and this is very characteristic of developing nations, if there's a lot of economic activity in a particular country, but it only involves, massive growth by the wealthy class of people, which, by the way, is the first step towards economic growth, which is a first step towards economic development, that doesn't necessarily mean it's shared by all. So we measure growth by calculating the gross domestic product, or GDP, of a country, and GDP is just a rise in or a fall of overall economic activity. If it goes up, we got growth, okay? So keep that in mind, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's evenly distributed, and there's often this tension between economic growth and economic development, because development means that the welfare of people improves over time. And it is true that long and sustained economic growth will lead to rise in equity in the distribution of income in a particular place, which would lead to an increase in overall development of a country. But the first thing that has to happen is the country has to experience a period of economic growth, and it's going to be uneven. And no matter the country's history that you look at, you will see that they went through a period of time where the wealthy class got stupid rich really fast. In the United States, it happened like in the 1880s up to the 1920s. That 40-year period there, people just got dumb rich, you know. And the reason they did is that there's so much economic activity. Now, did they exploit the working class, and did that create all the social programs that then evolved? Of course, you know. Socialism is the adaptation of the working class to the horrors caused by untethered, unfettered, unrestrained capitalism. So they are related to one another immediately, like intimately, right? But growth is the first step towards development. So if any government wants to develop, they first must figure out a way of experiencing long and sustained economic growth. And the best way to do that for a developed nation is to focus on a growth rate of around 2%. Well, there you have it. That's what economic growth means. I hope that was helpful to you. Listen, it's kind of intriguing because you hear about it in politics all the time, as I just mentioned, like, you know, economic growth, how fast the country growing, you know, the growth rate's going up, the growth rate's going down. But what you got to realize also is the government doesn't really want the economy to go too quickly, because if it does, it'll drive up inflation, and if inflation goes up, people's wages won't be able to buy the same amount of stuff next year as this year, and that turns into a political crisis, which is why the government is really, really interested in managing growth. Cool, my friends. Listen, congratulations on being interested and looking into studying economics. If you're in a macroeconomics course, oh man, congratulations. You're learning so much that's going to inform you throughout your entire life. All right, listen, my friends, the world out there is our classroom. Use it. Look around. Keep your mind open. Keep thinking as you travel around this world, and a study of macroeconomics is going to inform you about all of the things that you'll come across. All right, be good to yourselves out there, my friends. Be good to one another as well. And we'll talk to you in a bit.